microphone on. Okay, then I have to move over a little bit. All right, I'm calling the meeting to order. I'm Jack Levine, and I'm acting chair today. Bob Stodel and Michelle Laramie are both absent. I think Michelle might be on the phone. I never read out loud, so this might be quite fun to see how much I stumble over this, but let's give it a go. All right, so we've called the meeting to order. Are we in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, we are in compliance.
All right. This is the public comment section.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, can I please do the roll call?
What?
The roll call.
Did I skip one? Oh, roll call. All right, you see? All right, let's do the roll call.
Thank you. Acting Chair Levine,
Here.
Commissioner Stodel,
Present.
Commissioner Laramie, excused Commissioner Hotchkiss, Commissioner Surface,
Here.
Commissioner Cosgrove,
Here.
Commissioner Moody,
Here.
Commissioner Palacios, Commissioner Perdue, Commissioner Grimmer,
Here.
Commissioner Harper,
Here.
Commissioner Seabrandt,
Here.
Commissioner Gillespie.
Present.
Thank you, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is our public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters of the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Do I have anybody wishing to speak right now? I don't see anybody. All right, thank you. Number 4, I'm not aware of any chair's announcements that need to be made at this time. Let's see, number 5 for, okay, number 5, all right, number 5 is to approve the final minutes for reference of the regular meeting of February 26, 2025. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Commissioner Moody here. Just before we vote, I plan to abstain on that vote on the final minutes since I did not attend last month's hearing.
All right.
This is Commissioner Cosgrove. I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
All right, any comments, any questions? Anybody? All right, so let's take a vote to accept the minutes of the last month's meeting.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Stodel?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Acting Chair Levine, this is Seabrant for the record. We would like to pull 2 items forward as they are both voting items. Item number 7, if you could read that into the record and we can vote on that one, and then we'd also like to pull forward item number 9.
All right, let's do that. All right, item number 7, 25-0135-HPC1, discussion for possible action regarding approval of funding in the amount of $950 to Couts Environmental Consultants, Inc., to complete final edits in the updated National Register of Historic Places nomination for the Las Vegas Old Mormon Fort, located at 500 West Washington Avenue, Ward 5.
Seabrant, for the record, this is a vote where, at our last meeting, Chairman Stodel did ask for additional edits on this final nomination, and in order to do that, it did require the extra funding for the hours and the research that the consultant needed to complete, so we just need a vote on this to ensure that we get them that extra funding.
Chairman Levine, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any discussion or questions, anything that needs to be brought up? Hearing none, let's call for a vote on item number 7.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Commissioner Grimmer, was that an aye?
Yes, ma'am. Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the motion is passed.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. All right. And we're also bringing forward item number 9, which is 25-0138-HPC1, a discussion for possible action regarding approval of funding in the amount of $9,500 to Couts Environmental Consultants, Inc. for additional project research for the historical report of Floyd Land Park at Tule Springs, located at 9200 Tule Springs Road in Ward 6.
Steve Brent, for the
Commissioner
record,
Seabrand, yes.
so this is another report that the commission did approve funding for. As the consultant has been doing their research, they found that there are quite a few documents that we were unaware of that are available for additional research. Some of the documents that they have found, some of it's conflicting information, so they need to do a lot of cross-referencing because, of course, we do want to ensure that this report is filled with accurate historical information, and so they do need to spend a bit more time on the research and the writing, so it does require the increase in cost, and this will also add a couple other months to this project. So we just need a vote of approval on this if the commission does agree.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve or disapprove?
Commissioner Moody, I move to approve item 9 for the additional funding.
All right, thank you. Any comments, questions? Any discussion at all? Hearing none, let's call for a vote. Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Michelle Laramie has joined.
Commissioner Laramie, we just took a vote on item 9. Do you wish to express your approval?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Which item is number 9?
That was item 9, to grant COTS Environmental Consultants $9,500 for additional research for the historical report of Floyd Land Park at Tule Springs.
Yes, I approve that.
Thank you.
Okay.
That motion carries.
The motion carries, thank you. All right, that takes us to agenda item number 6, 25-0134-HPC1, the report by Jay Dapper, principal of Dapper Companies, regarding the status of the Hunt Ridge Theater located at 1208 East Charleston Boulevard in Ward 3. Looks like Mr. Dapper is here with us. I'll turn the floor over to him.
Hello, everybody. Jay Dapper, 5030 Paradise Road. Nice to see you all today. I'm here to give you an update on the Hunt Ridge Theater. I would love to say that we're under construction, but we're not yet. But I do have some good updates for you, and I believe that we provided a package to Dr. Seabrand, and that was that given to the board, or is that just something that I'd put up on the screen?
Steve Brent, for the record, if you're referring to the PowerPoint, no, this is part of the backup for today.
Got it. Okay. So there are a few things that we're working on for the project in order to be able to get to the point where we'll call it shovel ready. One of the biggest items, and it's why we put it at the top of the report, is the cell phone tower relocation. So as I've talked about in the past, so we have a cell phone tower that's at the back of the Hunt Ridge Theater. It currently sits about 12 feet off the back of the theater, and the original lease was signed approximately 30 years ago, and it was signed with AT&T, and then it was.
Sorry, we have your PowerPoint if you don't want to show it on this.
Oh, you do?
Yes, yeah,
Oh, okay.
because that's kind of.
Well, how do you know which? Okay, so so I just got to control it.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry guys. So we have I think I was talking about the lease. So the lease was originally with AT&T, and then they subsequently assigned it to a company called Crown Castle. And Crown Castle is a big nationally publicly traded company that manages cell tower sites for, big companies like AT&T. So AT&T is still our underlying tenant. Crown Castle is the company that basically manages the cell tower for them. And we approached them 3 years ago, maybe, to work with them to relocate the cell tower to the back corner of our property in order for us to proceed forward with our plans to redevelop the Hunters Theater. Initially, they seemed interested in doing that, and we started to work on a plan to kind of put that together. One of the things that Crown Castle, we didn't have a full package or lease file for their cell tower, because when I took it over, there was a lot of unknowns. And with the theater being on the National Historic Register, there's a law that requires an environmental assessment before they could build the cell phone tower. And that environmental assessment was supposed to be done and then provided before they erected the tower. We went to them and asked them for that because we didn't have a copy of it, and they said they think that they had it, but they weren't sure, and for probably a year and a half, they didn't provide it. And just recently, within the last couple of months, they provided an environmental assessment, but it was done about 12 years after the cell tower was constructed. So effectively, the cell tower was built without the environmental assessment that's required by the law because it's on the National Historic Register. And I'm giving you guys a lot of detail on this, but to make a long story short, we're in negotiations right now to hopefully get them to agree to move to the back corner of the property while temporarily going on something called a COW, which is a cell on wheels, which would allow them to continue to service their customers and do all the things that the cell tower does while we build and construct the cell tower in the back corner of the property. Unfortunately, AT&T and Crown Castle they're both very big companies. They move very slow, and they haven't been very interested in helping us get this done, in a quick way. And so, I believe it was either in October or November of last year, I had to file a lawsuit against them to hopefully help expedite this from getting done. We've been continually working on this with our attorneys and their attorneys, and recently they've offered what I would say is the structure of a settlement that would allow us to move the cell tower. It's not exactly what we need because they're asking us to give them what amounts to a free piece of land at the back of the building for the next 100 years for this cell tower. And although I think we're getting much, much closer to working out a resolution with them, there's still some more work to be done. Until that gets resolved, it would be very difficult for us to proceed forward because the new hallway that services the 2 new boxes that we're building at the back of the property, which is a part of the project, basically runs right through where this new cell tower is. Or not new cell tower, where the current cell tower is. And so that is something that has to be resolved, or we have to change our plans and build, alter our plans in a way that we would have to go all the way back through the entitlement process and all the way back through the historical preservation process. And then we would also have to resubmit our plans that have been submitted and approved at the Park Service for our historic tax credits, which we don't want to do that either. So we are hopeful that we get this worked out. AT&T and Crown Castle agrees to move the cell tower to the back corner of the property, and if that is to occur, then we will be in a good position to complete our set of plans, submit those to the city, which the entitlements have been approved, but we can't submit the plans right now because the cell tower, if we submitted the set of plans as designed today, there would be a cell tower basically in the middle of the lobby, and that's not possible to do. And so Ginsler, our architectural firm, is at about 90% complete on the core and shell plans, so they've got about 10% to go. But again, can't finish the plans and submit them to the city because of the cell tower issue. So with that said, that's kind of the, we'll call it the bad news. And I'm certainly willing, if we want to take this in parts, I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to the cell tower and the ongoing litigation and anything else as far as that, if the board has any questions.
Jack Levine, for the record, is there any help that could be gotten from our Congress people or senators or anybody in the federal government that can lead on AT&T or anybody to speed this up?
That's a great question. So we have reached out to already Dina Titus's office, and she is trying to help us. Certainly, the councilwoman, knows about this. There's been a lot of news stories published on this, and I was hoping that there would be kind of more public outcry and maybe pressure put on AT&T to potentially settle this and, move this cell tower, because obviously it is completely holding up the project. Their current lease, regardless of what happens, comes to an end, I think, in the beginning of 2029. So if I did nothing at all and just waited to 2029, they would have to come and remove the cell tower and go away. And so it seems really silly, when you're talking about a company that's been there for 30 years, they're at the end of the road, and I've offered them a way to stay, which it's clear that they want to stay for another 30 years, that they wouldn't work with us in earnest to try to get this accomplished. I have done a lot of reaching out to, stakeholders, politicians, and people with influence to try to get this worked out. But with AT&T and specifically Crown Castle, which is the company that we're dealing with, they're just this big company. Crown Castle has no office in Vegas. They don't know what the Huntridge Theater is, don't seem to really care about it or, care about saving it. And they're just acting like a big company does. So.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions about the cell tower? Okay. So we'll call it, that's the bad news. So the good news is that, just like we said, we're at 90% complete. So, and just so everybody on the Preservation Commission, has a good idea of how far along we are, and then also where this issue exists. So if you look on your screen today, this is the floor plan of what's been designed. And the historic Huntridge Theater is the large pink box at the top with all the seats that you can see. And then currently in the corner, is there a way that I can point to on the screen, or no, I guess not? There is a salmon-colored box that's a bathroom, kind of right under the theater, and you can actually see it's a common hallway, and that common hallway leads to these two boxes in the back, which are the two new theaters that are going to be built at the back of the theater. That cell tower, you can see there's a green kind of like pathway that goes at the edge of the bar that's there. So that cell tower today kind of sits right in the middle of that lobbyway. And so you can understand why why that's so impactful to our design, because there was really one place in the theater that we were able to essentially cut a hole in the side of the historic Huntridge Theater and connect this new, lobby to these new theaters. Originally, when the theater was built, we actually discovered that there was some kind of a doorway already there, and that just became the natural place to put the entrance to this new lobby. The rest of the areas, didn't have cuts in them or anything, and so it would be very difficult for us to change the design because we're working within the parameters of the existing theater. So I'd love to just design around the cell tower, but it's kind of hard to do when it's right off the back of the building. And what would be even worse is by the time we finished the theater, once we redesigned, if I did nothing, then they would have to take the cell tower down anyway, which would be even worse, because now we would redesign and the cell tower would be gone. But This is the completed design. The core and shell plans, as I said, are at about 90% complete. But one of the new developments, which is a really positive development, is, if you look on this slide here, so there's a number of organizations that we've been working with that the Huntridge Theater, and more specifically the Soho Playhouse, has gone and kind of communicated with. So there's lots of different, some musical and some theater type organizations. Many of these are nonprofits, and they are, some of them have homes, some of them have temporary homes, and some of them are what I would consider like homeless organizations. So like, for instance, the Jazz Outreach Initiative, they go by Joy. They're a wonderful organization. They currently don't have a home, and they do some amazing programs. They lease space at UNLV and a lot of other places throughout the city, and they're looking for a home. In addition to that, there's a bunch of other theaters, some of which that do have either temporary or permanent spaces, but just not ideal spaces, that have all come together, and they created something called the Broadway Stage Collective. And there's about 3 or 4 theaters that have all come together, and they're head by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Keith Bowman. And Dr. Bowman was one of the main people that was involved in getting the Smith Center built. So one of the halls at the Smith Center is named after Dr. Bowman. He was responsible for raising a great deal of money for that project. He's still currently on the board of the Smith Center, and he has joined the board of the Soho Playhouse, which is a really wonderful thing. And he has brought his group, the Broadway Stage Collective, to the project, and their plans are to all locate within the Huntridge Theater, and which is a really great thing. But one of the things that's also done, because now instead of there just being one theater company in the Huntridge, there's going to be multiple. That means that there are some small changes that we're making to this floor plan in order to accommodate all of these theater companies all being in one place. And so, for instance, at the back of the property, as you can see, we were going to build 2 new boxes. One was going to be on the right-hand side. That's a black box, which has a lot of flexibility to do lots of different things. And then on the left-hand side, it was a cabaret theater. With Dr. Bowman's involvement in the Smith Center, as some of you may know, has a cabaret theater. And that cabaret theater is great, and it does get utilized, but it's definitely not one of the things that gets utilized as much as some of the other spaces at the Smith Center. Dr. Bowman made a recommendation to us that we thought was very good, and that was to change the cabaret into a secondary black box, which would help accommodate all of these theater companies that are going to be coming and co-locating inside the Huntridge Theater. And so, although it doesn't change the exterior boxes, it does change some of the seating configurations and also the way that those theaters are, how you load in and things like that. So Ginsler is in the process of making those changes. They're working with the Theater Collective and Dr. Bowman's group to make those changes with the Soho Playhouse. And we expect to have those changes hopefully made, I'm going to say within the next 60 to 90 days. And as long as the cell phone tower gets resolved, then that set of plans would be sent into the building department. We've worked very closely with the building department, and they've committed to expediting our plans. And we would hope to get, after submittal of those permits, get that process by the end of the year and hopefully break ground. You can see, we say construction begins Q1 of 2026. We have to get our permitting phase complete, which, if everything goes well, we get the cell tower worked out. We could, be through our permitting phase by the end of Q3. Financing takes about a quarter or less. We would already be working on that. And that also would include, Dr. Bowman's group raising a significant amount of money for the project, because all these groups are nonprofits. And then our construction would begin Q1 of 2026. And then it's about a year from the time we start construction to the time we finish construction. So that's a basic overview. This is something that you guys have seen before. It's the roadmap that we submitted to the HPC, which we were asked to give, where we give quarterly updates, come to you guys and, tell you what's going on with the project. And then we also, work with the city to do on-site inspections. And one of the things that I've never really said in my past presentations, because we were talking about other things, but if any of the board members are interested in coming down to the Huntridge and haven't been there to tour the theater, get a sense of the condition that it's currently in, and see all the things that we've done to clean it up and do all of those things, I encourage you to reach out to Dr. Seabrandt so we can set that up. She's been there many times, and, we'd be very happy to have you. And I think it also helps out a lot, because when you look at something on a piece of paper, it doesn't tell you a lot when you see something in person and you can actually understand the context and the way, the condition of the building and all the things that we've done since the time we have purchased it. It really does help out a lot. So I think that that's the end of my presentation. And if you guys have any other questions about anything that I didn't mention, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Perdue, at what point would it be feasible for the HPC committee, those of us that are interested in going and visiting the facility?
Anytime you like. We do tours pretty often. One of the things that I committed to when I bought the theater was to make it open and accessible to the public. So we've done lots of different types of events. We had the sign lighting event, and then we did some tours through the theater. But we could do that anytime. It's always better if maybe there was a couple of people at once, but even if we have to just accommodate every person individually, we could easily do that. There's 3 structures at the project. There's the historic Huntridge Theater, and then there's the post office building that's at the back that was originally a post office that's now going to be a restaurant, which I've shared the plans for that restaurant in some of my past updates. And then we have a front structure that will also be a restaurant, probably a brewery or a distillery. And it probably takes somewhere between, I would say, 30 and 45 minutes to walk through all the buildings. So that can be set up anytime. And now would be a great time because obviously we don't have air conditioning on inside the building. And so weather is wonderful to go through the building. If you call me in July, you're going to be miserable because it's going to be like 180 degrees inside the building.
Diane, could that be arranged?
Seabrandt, for the record, it can be, but we cannot have a quorum that will be visiting at one time. So we can, if everybody wants to send Teresa your dates that work for you, we can certainly look at that.
Okay.
And then is there any other questions on the Huntridge? Because I do, even though it's unrelated, I wanted to give a quick update on our Mission Linen project, which is under construction. So are there any other questions on the Huntridge Theater? No? Oh, can't? Okay.
Seabrandt, for the record, since it's not on the agenda, we can't really discuss it.
Okay. No problem.
Legal, do you want to weigh in on that?
No, I agree, just since it isn't on the schedule, but we could always put it on the agenda in the future if you'd want to give.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if we could, we're under construction now, and, I'd like to make the same offer, and, although we didn't get it on the register the last time, now that we're under construction, Dr. Seabrandt, that's something I'd like to explore, probably at the end of construction, and so I'd love, maybe on the next update that I bring, we could also add Mission Linen, and, I could share some great pictures of the construction and all that. Okay, great.
So this is Commissioner Cosgrove. I have a question. Is it possible when we get to the end of this, and day will come, that we can get all of your reports and your images and everything that we could bind together into a history of what you've done and the many different issues you've had to deal with and how you've made your decisions, because I think that will be an important historical record that people will want to know about.
Yeah, I mean, we submit all of this to the city, so I imagine that they have each one of these reports. I mean, we could certainly provide it again. We keep pretty good records, and I don't know if any of you have taken the time to, we have, the huntridgetheater.com website, which, sometimes you go to a website and it's just like a landing page. But if you go to our website, we have a really comprehensive website. It's got an amazing photo history. So if you go to the photo section, there's photos all throughout, many, the decades. I encourage you to go look at it. It has a link to our video of our sign lighting event and a lot of other really great information that is, like when I say more comprehensive, the idea behind it wasn't so much to promote the project, but just to give the general public a better understanding of what you just said, like what's going on with the project. And although we don't update it like daily or weekly, we spent a lot of time putting it together, and I feel like it's got, a really good amount of information. And the idea also is to have a place where if somebody has any questions that's just in the general public, and somebody, let's say, that's in the neighborhood that lives behind it, they can easily contact us, and let's say they want to, tour the theater. That's one of those commitments that I made, that I said, I would make it open to the public. We've had just neighborhood people contact us and say, hey, could we go, take a look at the inside of the theater? And we've always accommodated them. They seem to be very thankful, and those are also the same people that have, come out in support of us and, always been really good to us. So the old ownership had the exact opposite relationship, I think, with the general public and the neighborhood, where they were very closed off and they didn't share information. And we've tried to be the opposite of that, so.
No, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any other questions, discussion? No? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
We'll see you in a couple months.
Absolutely. And Dr. Seabrand, so you'll let us know if we'll get that couple of tours set up? Okay.
That takes us to item number 825-0136-HPC1, a discussion regarding conservation districts as they relate to the historic preservation initiatives within the city of Las Vegas.
Thank you. Seaburn, for the record. So a couple weeks ago, Teresa sent everybody the links to the Denver, Colorado pattern books that were discussed at our last meeting. So, hopefully everybody had a chance to look at those. And today, we are just going to take whatever feedback you have a discussion. And I know Vice Chair Laramie, who's on the phone, is the one that is requesting the continuing conversation on this. So if she wanted to weigh in first, I think that would be appropriate. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Laramie?
Hi, thanks, Commissioner Laramie, for the record. I guess, actually, I would just I think we left off the last conversation with kind of a decision point, although I know we're just still discussing today on, if we wanted to move forward with maybe pursuing a more formal type of conservation district, which would actually be some sort of designation, or if we wanted to pursue, maybe a more informal approach and build off of what the city's been doing with the historic West Side area with these architectural design guidelines, which we found some examples of Denver's using in their conservation district. So I'm just curious what the other commissioners' thoughts are after they've had some time to review on maybe what their preferred direction might be that we continue pursuing.
Stoldoff, for the record.
Go ahead, Bob. Bob?
Jack, one of the, I think this is good to move forward, and along the idea of what Mike has been working on and the other members of the staff on the West Side Design guidebooks. But I'm wondering, at first I was thinking, well, why don't we just come up with a generic, and I'll use the word conservation district, but I don't mean that per se, but a guidebook that would fit for the community. Well, that doesn't work because of the different neighborhoods and so forth. So I was wondering if potentially the next step could be the identification of potential, and I know Dr. Seabrandt and the staff has done some of this work identifying neighborhoods, but somehow I think that there's a rule that says there has to be more than a certain number, a certain number of households before we can do a survey. But I think maybe if we can get a list of potential sites within the city of Las Vegas, that would be a step to move us forward into the reality of whether they're potentially historic districts or we want to fund money for a survey. So what I'm suggesting here as I babble is really just to come up with a tentative potential list of residential or business districts that have historic significance that could be either designated as on the register or a conservation district or the construction of a guidebook.
All right. And I don't know what to say. Anybody else? Any comments? Yes.
This is Commissioner Cosgrove. Thinking about the presentation from our last meeting, I'm thinking right now in the short term, there might be ways to incentivize people to use the guidebook if it especially aligns with energy efficiency. You know, if somebody's buying an older property, they're going to probably want to upgrade, they're going to want to make it energy efficient, they're going to want to make it fit in the neighborhood. From the presentation that we got last time, I could see people wanting to use that guidebook because it already is giving you great ideas. But Mike, the things that are in that, would they be energy efficient? I mean, are there other things that would incentivize people to use it?
For the record, Michael Howe. The quickest answer is not really, because it's really oriented more towards the aesthetic design, but it doesn't prohibit that. Kind of the quickest way to think of it is if someone were to redo their windows, I mean, that's typically like the low-hanging fruit for efficient upgrades. Nothing prohibits that, but it does have, you know, the preferred style of what the window would look like. It doesn't have the performance of what that window is. And so that part is something we probably should be thinking about because I don't want to say they work in conflict, but at times they can. Because a lot of efficient windows tend to be either fiberglass or vinyl and double or triple paned. And so we may want to have language that addresses, if that's the only option for an efficient upgrade, then what is the most appropriate of those options to keep it like preservation compatible?
Okay, thank you.
Jack Levine for the record. One of the things I noticed in the Denver design books was that lots of attention was paid to the interiors of how to rearrange the spaces or make them more contemporary, the way people want to live right now. Where, you know, our focus is really what can be seen from the street. So I don't think it would be as difficult to create that guidebook if we were only concentrating on the street view of different styles and types of houses. They don't necessarily have to be specific to any type of a neighborhood, but we really would need to identify all the different housing styles if we were to create a guidebook. And I think that'd be a great idea and get that distributed to encourage the neighborhoods to get together to want to create then a conservation district or even go all the way to historic district. So, but there was a lot of money and time and energy put into putting that style book together. in the city of Denver, and, you know, is that cost effective and productive for us? Or is our focus really going to be on the exteriors and what's viewed from the street as opposed to how to rearrange the walls?
I tend to lean towards what Jack is suggesting. Stodoff for the record.
This is Commissioner Laramie. I think it could be interesting to maybe if we could work with the current planning department or even code and just kind of find out a little bit more information about what are kind of like the requests and the most common things that people are doing to modify some of their their older houses. And then, perhaps we could focus on those more common aspects that people are looking to do and focus the guidebooks on those.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Surface, I echo what's been said by Jack, and I think, in this adventure, we probably would gain the most momentum and support if we do the guidebook, take that step, and maybe unify some of these neighborhoods around the guidebook to utilize it, and then go forward with a conservation district, and then possibly an historic district. I think that Jack kind of outlined a very workable strategy, and I would support that.
This is Commissioner Laramie. I agree with that, with all of that as well. And I think, when we start to think about and get to the point of budgeting what this is going to cost, we can also think about what kind of maybe a public campaign of getting the guidebooks out there might look like. And if we want to, build in some additional funding for maybe a consultant-led campaign who could put together some educational events with realtors and neighborhoods, and maybe a few things online to really kind of help promote the guidebooks once they're finished.
All right.
This is Commissioner Grimmer, and I would also agree with the comments that Commissioner Levine put on the record and the others. And I think that's a great idea, Commissioner Laramie. If we're going to put the effort into this, we also want to make sure that we can get it out to the public. But, it's going to be a living document. It's going to be something that they can change over time, and we can grow it over time. So I think it is a great idea to kind of start with the outside and then see where we go from there.
Go, you.
Commissioner Harper, for the record. In doing my homework, I had a chance to read through a couple other municipalities' descriptions of historic overlays. I found the city of Nashville had a really good example. I'm talking about historic overlays. They have 6 different types of historic overlays, including historic landmarks, not just exteriors, but also interiors and signage in there as well. I found their information to be really useful there. I find that the Las Vegas guidebooks, the design guidebooks that we have, were far superior and much easier to read and understand what was required of you from the Las Vegas guidebooks than the one that was given as an example from Denver. I think much better than what we have here.
Right. But of course, we have those specific to, Jack Levine for the record, we have those specific to our designated historic neighborhood districts. There could actually be taken from that a generic version that it would apply to all neighborhoods, because we're not going to have the power to tell people, no, you can't put that kind of window in those other neighborhoods until they actually become, on a register somewhere. But we could probably, yes, we could probably use that kind of a format and a lot of that work that's already been done. The same types and styles of houses exist in most of the neighborhoods that exist in our already designated registered neighborhoods. So that's a good idea, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody? Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Laramie again, and I think we discussed this a little bit at the last meeting, but we have already, done quite a bit of survey work, and I think there's still other neighborhoods that we want to survey, but I think we have a lot of the information to continue building out our guidebook, like you said, Jack, with, neighborhood-specific information based off of the survey work that we've already done for, like, the Charleston Heights area. Sorry, I'm kind of blanking on some of the other neighborhoods right now, but we've completed 3 or 4 surveys over the past few years, so I think we could even make some neighborhood-specific recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Loine.
I'm sorry?
Still off for the record, just a quick question. I think we should continue this on our next agenda as well. But I'm wondering if, and I can't see if Mike is there because or Dr. Seabrand, is there a city rule or probably not an ordinance, but a guideline that says we will only fund neighborhoods of a certain size? Are there any sort of parameters that we need to be aware of?
So, Stephen, for the record, and Mike Howe is here. I'm not clear on your question. You're asking, can we only do a designation if there's a certain size of a neighborhood? If that's the question, the answer is no. It's always for the historic designation is we need 51% of homeowners, regardless of how many homeowners there are. Just 51% of the collective.
What I was thinking is that, let's say there's a neighborhood, and this is from my memory, that we were told, the HPC was told, if the community, the residentially doesn't have more than 75 homes that were built by a developer, that we should not invest in doing a survey. It was just a historic survey that I'm suggesting, not trying to determine, get everybody with public hearings that it's going to be on the register, but just to see if there's enough integrity left in certain neighborhoods as to whether it could fit into some classification. So if there's no restrictions, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyway, well, Jack Levine, for the record, in relationship to that, on like the west side, we have relatively large neighborhoods like McNeil and Rancho Nevada and Rancho Bel Air, but on the east side, my house is in Acres Tract, which was a 10-acre parcel off of Oakey, is both sides of 8th Place and the west side of 8th Street, just for one block, and there's only 30 homes, and that was my subdivision. But, we've made an artificial designation of putting that into the Southridge Neighborhood Association, which is everything from Oakey to Sahara and 6th Street to Maryland Parkway. It's a really big district, but there's like 15 different tracks in that. So, then we have to decide whether we're doing it by neighborhood associations that were drawn up artificially 15 years ago or 20 years ago, or are we doing individual neighborhoods? How we're dividing that up. So that was one of the first suggestions I think Commissioner Laramie made today, was to kind of parcel it out and see how many different zones or districts, whether they be conservation or whatever, how many different ones do we have, and how do we put what house into what, how do we divide it up?
Sold off for the record, I agree with that, and it could be simply by either the developer or potential the architect. But I think that would just be a starting point for us, and once we got that kind of a list, there may be some particular architectural styles or time periods that still maintain some integrity in those neighborhoods. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? wrap up the conversation then? All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda item then, if there's no other comments. All right, where we go, number 10? Yeah, the report, number 10 is the report by the Community Development Department regarding director status. And I believe Mike Cunningham is here to give us an update.
Director's updates? For the record, Michael Howe, I do not have any director's updates for this meeting.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 11 is the report by the Community Development Department regarding the project update list. Commissioner Seabrand?
Did you read it into record? Sorry, I missed that.
I believe I did. Okay.
He did? Seabrand for the record. So these are our updates. Cliff May Home Survey, SHPO's still reviewing that. They said they should have that done by the first week of April. Old Mormon Fort, it will be on the June 5th State Board meeting for approval or not. West Side School National Register update, that was sent to the keeper of the register a couple weeks ago. They are given at least 45 days for their review, so don't expect to hear back from them until at least that much time has passed. The Floyd Lamb Park Historical Report is in progress, and the Huntridge neighborhood signs have been completed and have all been installed. So we did have a couple of projects with Ward 3, Councilwoman Livia Diaz. The first one was adding doing the plaque ceremony for the Huntridge House at 1433 Cottonwood Place. Chairman Stortle and Councilwoman Diaz were there to provide the plaque to the homeowner. She was very happy with it. She's going to proudly display it right there by her front door. So there was a very nice ceremony. Also on, I don't remember which day it was, but it was the day it was raining all day. We did a little neighborhood tour with Ward 3 through the John S. Park neighborhood. And if you recall, sometime last year, this is the design of the neighborhood sign that the HPC did approve. So we did a tour with Councilwoman and her entourage of looking at several different houses and showing us where all these signs have been installed. And I will get pictures of the Huntridge signs as well. I just didn't have time that day. And then this is a reminder, we did present this at our last meeting as put this on in the back of your head if you wanted to attend the Pass Forward conference. The Pass Forward 2025 conference is September 16th through the 18th. It is in Milwaukee. The location is the Hilton Milwaukee City Center. We do need to know by May 8th if you want to participate. So please email Teresa if you are interested in attending this conference. We need to know how many members we have so that we can understand how much funding we need, and then we will need to come back to the HPC for that funding. So again, please let her know by May 8th. Just a couple of reminders. HPC awards voting, if you haven't submitted a nomination, the nominations have been completed, but we need your votes by April 16th. So everybody has those nominations. Everybody should have read them or are reading them, and get back to Teresa with your votes on by April 16th. And as a reminder, because city council chambers are not available during our regular scheduled meeting for April, so it is moved. It's still at noon, but it is on April 30th, so please make sure that you note that April 30th is the next HPC meeting. And happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
All right, thank you. Let's see, where we're at 12 now. Report by the community, it's 25-0137-HPC1. That's the report by the Community Development Department regarding historic and archaeological resources in the local media. And those were articles and things that were in our backup material. All right. And let's move on to number 13 is a discussion regarding topics for future agenda items. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion shall be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the commission, and or whether such proposed items shall be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. Does anybody have anything we'd like to put on next month's agenda? Anybody going once? Going twice? Hearing none? All right, thank you. And what does that leave us? What's on the back of that? Citizens participation. Well, now, item number 14, citizen participation, public comment. Do I have to read the whole thing? Because there's nobody in the audience. I have to read the whole thing. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No subject may be acted upon by the commission unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name and for the record. The amount of discussion of any single subject, as well as any amount of time any speaker is allowed, may be limited. There's nobody in the audience, hearing none. We'll finish that, and, I get to do this. Adjourn. All right.
Good job.
All right, yay.
In fact, we